Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to the weekly armchair. I'm sure all of you are very much in the loop of what's been going on today. Very much back and forth. Not sure where we're going, what we're seeing, what's going on. But lots has come out today. Obviously, at the moment, I'm joined by Julio, Jamie, Reese. Thanks, boys, for joining me. Get your comments in, guys. Get liking, subscribe, get subscribing, all that jazz. Jamie, we were talking backstage. Obviously, we did a show last night. For those of you who didn't see it, last 20 minutes was very, very powerful, and I would tell everyone to go and have a look at that for sure. But obviously, with the news today, obviously, first of all, Rio Ferdinand coming out and saying that he's hearing. Obviously, he was part of the Qatar group for the World Cup. Maybe he does know a little bit more. It seems odd that obviously he would say something. The company's house have now registered Qatari 92 Foundation. Obviously, the stock market completely paused at one point, and then of course Reuters, who are very credible, have now come out and said something. Now it's obviously been the questions have been posed to a lot of other sources, and they've all kind of rebuffed it and saying that it's not true. Jamie, thanks for joining me, buddy. How are you feeling about this, obviously? And do you think we need to take anything at the moment? Do we take it with a pinch of salt, or do you think it might have some sort of legs behind it?
I'd probably take anything with a pinch of salt. Rio Ferdinand's a muppet, mint centre half. Don't get me wrong, but the guy's a muppet, and I highly doubt that the biggest sale of a sports franchise, sports club, whatever you want to class it as in history, is not going to come out through Rio Ferdinand stood in front of a train going, "Yes, guys, what's happening? Here's
Yes,
what I'm
I
hearing."
agree.
It's the same with all these in the knows on Twitter that have been saying for the last 6 months. It's just like I guarantee you, sitting in your flat in Urmston, you're not getting signals about the biggest sale of a sports club in the history of the game. Like it's just not happening. Like people have loved to make stories because it's good content and stuff like that, and people love to write about it. There's probably some legs in it. Don't get me wrong, but with Rio saying that it's imminent, he's probably hedging his bets here, and he's putting all his eggs into one basket. That he wants to make himself like a credible source, because with the way the stock market's gone today, with what Reuters have been saying, Rio Ferdinand has probably caught wind of that and gone, "Oh, I can probably say it's imminent now." And then when it happens, I'll be like, "I told you guys first." The Ronaldo deal is one thing. Him knowing about that doesn't really surprise me because
No, no.
he'll still have
Yeah.
contacts at the club and stuff like that. But I don't imagine that Joel Glazer's ringing up Rio Ferdinand going, "Yes, lad, how's it going?" Just to let you know the Qataris are winning. Like, so for
Yeah,
me, that doesn't sit quite
people
right.
tend to forget as well. Sorry, Jamie. People tend to forget as well. Like so many NDAs would have been sort of signed, and so much
Massively.
information is not allowed to be obviously given. So it does sort of beg the question why everybody seems to have all this information. As I said, Reuters, slightly different, very credible, especially from a financial perspective. And I was saying to you in the background, Jamie, as well, in my opinion, is that obviously if Qatar was briefing, we'd probably hear from Mike Keegan. If Ineos was briefing, we'd probably hear from the Times or Matt Dickinson. But the fact it's Reuters, a financial institution, makes me believe probably, and I'm just guessing here, that the information might be coming directly from the Rain Group, perhaps. Very,
Yeah.
very strange. Sorry, Jamie, carry on, buddy.
It's all right. Just to finish off like the opening bit, like it would not surprise me one bit if in the next few days it does get greenlit and it comes out and United tweet a statement or something like that, because the the Glazers are not interested in who's going to be the best owner for United. The Glazers do not
No.
care. They'll have set a price that they want, and it's a case of whoever stumps up the most cash. Do you know what I mean? Like when Colonel Gaddafi tried to buy Crystal Palace all them years ago or whatever, people were asked about who's buying him. Do you know what I mean? Because there was, fit and proper tests. He was a bit of a dodgy looking guy. Do you know what I mean? And obviously it turned out he wasn't a very nice man in the end. The Glazers would have sold to Colonel Gaddafi in a heartbeat if he'd have stumped up the cash. I'm telling you right now. So for me, I think the noise today is probably that their estimation of the club value has probably finally been met. We've gone through months and now of briefings every week of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Ineos group have put up, 4.5 billion, just short of the Glaze, but it's yet to be seen whether they'll. Do you know what I mean? We've had a lot of nothingness for the last couple of weeks, and it's probably today is probably the one where there are stirrings coming out that are actually right. 6 billion is a fair price. And that for me, regardless of your thoughts on the ownership, and I'm sure we'll go into that, I think the most bitter taste that is being left in my mouth is that after what 18 years of mismanagement, poor ownership, lack of investment, protests, just being the worst owners of any football club, is that they're going to walk away with $6 billion, dollars, pounds, whatever it is, and go thanks very much for the money. And it's nice to see that the Premier League have finally passed all the anti-Glazer
I
clauses,
know, it's
albeit
fitting, isn't
a
it?
tad bit too late. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
18 years too late, but in the perfect timing for having to do this, which of course, obviously, they might go into exclusivity, but ultimately it's probably going to be at least 3 weeks to a month to go before they can go through all the fit and proper, and it's going to take its time, which obviously doesn't help us, doesn't bode well with our transfer window. And I think, if I'm honest, we haven't got too much to spend anyway. We've got to sell players. We might get 50 million more if the Qatar do take over and pay off all our debts. But it might be too little, too late, and doesn't really bode well. And on your point, actually, Jamie, about the Glazers obviously being very selfish, very entitled, and not doing it from a Man United perspective at all. I saw a tweet earlier. Imagine if the Glazers had put as much effort into running Manchester United, or at least finding the people qualified to run it, if they had with the amount they've put into auctioning to sell it. I mean, they have kind of used every kind of outlet, haven't they? And obviously brought Sir Jim in to get Qatar potentially to bring in his bid. And but there you go. Anyway, so just as a quick update for all of you watching, obviously Rio today, just to kind of give you all that information. He said it was about a 40-second video. He just about to get on the train, I think, and he said, from my perspective, Manchester United takeover is imminent. We're hearing the Qatari bid is the one which will be accepted. Hallelujah. Please let it happen. I did see a funny response to that as well, and kind of what you said earlier, Jamie, as well. If Rio said it was sunny outside, I'd grab my waterproof. Sold his soul to clicks years ago and knows such a statement will fly. Reese, great to have you with me, my man. Anything to add to that, obviously, with all the news that's coming out today?
Not a lot. To be honest, I've been distancing myself from the takeover, purely for the sense of not a lot is transparent. There's not a lot of information that's actually effective that's come out. So I'm taking everything with a pinch of salt, really, unless it's coming from certain individuals. I think, as you've said, like the last part there about Ferdinand, it's pure clickbait bollocks. So I'm not taking anything as you said, if you could tell me rain. I live in Scotland. He could tell me if it was sunny outside. It is, by the way. But if he told me if it was sunny outside, I'd have to physically walk over my window just to check, because I don't trust the man.
It's not sunny. Am I the
No,
only
it's
one
sunny.
Am I the only one melting here? It's absolutely
No,
boiling.
it's definitely sunny here. It is roasting. I'm just saying, if it had been, I'd still have to go and check. That's what Ferdinand does to me. He just talks bollocks. From what I have seen, though, it looks like Qatar's going to get it. I said this in our group chat earlier on, and I said yesterday as well. I personally don't care who the owner's going to be. Everybody at the moment is becoming a morality police merchant, and I'm honestly sick of the bollocks, all round. I would rather just get this over with. Whoever it's going to be, Jim Ratcliffe, Qatar. My main concern is the club, not the fans. The fans seem to be dictating situations right now. I think Jamie spoke about it eloquently last night. It's not about. I think the one key thing here, and I'm just going to say this, and then I'm never going to speak about it again. It shouldn't be about where you come from as a fan. That about your opinion. Your opinion should always matter. It's once it gets to an extreme level that I distance myself. I'd rather just have a simple conversation about the club with the fans themselves, and just enjoy discussing it. When it comes to the takeover, it's becoming bitter. It's becoming more and more of a disgrace conversation. So frankly, I mean, same with you three guys is not too bad. Well, technically, I'm the only one standing, but I'm generally in the conversation where the sooner it's done, the sooner I can just move on to whatever the next step is, because I just, excuse my language, I can't be arsed.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It has become. I mean, it's been going sort of 7-8 months now. Chelsea.
It's so toxic.
It is a toxic environment, and Jamie, as you quite rightly said, eloquently put last night, it's just creating more of an agenda, more of a sort of segregation within the fan base about what everyone thinks should happen. Ultimately, we don't have any control at this. I absolutely agree with a lot of Jamie's points last night, and feel the same way. However, it's out of our control. What will be, and all we can hope for, as you've said, Reece, is that they get the right footballing men in, and hopefully, the clubs run well. You get.
Thought I'd just do that just for you, Sean. Just for you, Sean.
You don't really, you've got all a bit like Newcastle at the moment. I don't know what the sponsor was, Jamie. I can't remember. You have to remind me. But obviously they've now got a new shirt sponsor.
That's Celia.
Yeah, so
That's
obviously...
So
obviously they weren't even a thing 4 weeks ago, and now of course they're now the sponsors of Newcastle United's shirt, and fundamentally they're going to get a bit of an injection through that, and that's the kind of thing that's is difficult to kind of accept. You don't want to become that sports washing type of thing, but again, we have absolutely no control over that, unfortunately.
Can I just make one last point, mate? If that's all right, can I just make one last point? Why are, and this is a genuine question, right, to everybody, and this includes you lads as well. Why is it people are becoming so hell-bent now on it being a sport washing when every sport is corrupted when it comes to money? Like, what's the saying? Well, money is the source of all evil. Money is the true source of all evil. United have got a checkered history, a great history as well, but let's be honest, we've been stuck in a situation with the Glazers since 2005, well, actually 2003, if you think about it. Frankly, the situation with the fan base is you can be pro Qatar, no problem. You can be pro Jim Ratcliffe, no problem. But when does it become acceptable for fans to just say, this is what I believe in, but it's nothing to do with against the club's history? Because I'm seeing that a lot coming up in recent threads and tweets recently, where fans are saying they're all for Qatar, but they're being questioned on, do you even know anything about the club's history? Like, yes, the club's history is rich and proud, but you're a fan. I just wonder when it becomes a situation where it seems to become a conversation that you just can't have anymore. You know what I mean? There's some topics you just can't discuss without the immediate abuse. When does it become a factor that it just becomes a rational conversation?
Yeah, Jamie, Julia, do you want to come in on this?
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, I'll happily jump on for 2 seconds. And I think a lot of it comes down to, the stuff I was talking about last night with Brian and Keane, in that it is almost that, it's absolutes, and it's that if you're Qatarian, it's because you're a fake fan, you're a TV fan, you don't care or whatever. And obviously, I said last night, I disagree with a lot of that. Absolutely. I made the point that for me, the people that seem to be desperate for Qatari investment do strike me as the ones that don't know where Manchester is, and to them, it is just a TV program, and that's fine. People can consume football content how they want in that sense.
Absolutely.
But the problem is that it's been a war now between the two sets of fans. You've got, what we referred to last night, what people talk about all the time, and again, I don't agree with it, but you've got the E-Reds calling out match-going fans as Glazer apologists for lying in their pockets because they think it's dead simple to just not turn up to the game.
Absolutely.
And you lot pack out Old Trafford week in, week out, and that's the Glazers' primary source of income. So you're Glazer apologists,
but then which is not a fact, by the way. Which is not a fact, by the way. But we'll move on.
Bollocks. And then, of course, the match-going fans are returning to that, going, I mean, if we weren't going to the games, then the club literally wouldn't exist. There'd be no point for the stadium. There'd be no reason to be there. And it's now been effectively aligned with the two sides, is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is for your match-going fans, your Mancunians, your local people or whatever, and the Qataris are representing the people that don't go to games. And unfortunately, people have been finding the negative sides of both of those sets of fans. There's a lot of good about both sets of fans, obviously. I love the fact our club is one of the biggest clubs in the world, and we have a global fan base because it's the collective community. It's the pride of knowing that people all around the world watch the club that I love and support the same team as I do. But I think what is getting people's backs up and what is grinding people's gears is there's no leeway with either side. So all the people that are shouting for Qatar, it's you're either you're a xenophobe, you're a racist, you're a Glazer apologist if you don't want Qatari investment. And then on the other side, we've got people saying, "Oh, if you've never been to Old Trafford, shut up. Your opinion doesn't count." No, I don't agree with that. I think every fan deserves an opinion, but everyone needs to stop shouting each other down constantly. There are genuine issues with Qatari investment that I have, right, and I've voiced them multiple times on this channel. Qatar as a country with its history of violence against women, homophobia is absolutely rife there. There's a lot of issues that country doesn't represent the values that we have as a country. Rainbow laces, for example, the work that Man United LGBTQ plus groups do would be illegal in Qatar. So there's very much a juxtaposition there of we're being owned by a country that doesn't get behind a lot of the community work that we do to represent marginalised people, to make marginalised people feel comfortable at games, etc., etc. And I said to Mark just before we came on air, is if Sheikh Jassim takes over the club and in 10 years' time he's done everything by the books, he's involved himself in the community, he's got himself involved, and he's proven to be a really good owner, I will happily eat humble pie, I'll eat my words, and I'll hold my hands up. The problem is that, like we were mentioning there, like with like the Newcastle shirt sponsorship deal, how long is it until we get Qatari Airways as our title sponsor, and we're earning 5-6 times the market value for a sponsorship, and there's companies popping up out of Qatar that get registered under shell corporations so that they can invest, and before we know it, we become everything that we've mocked City for over the years, that we've taken a piss out of Newcastle for.
Yeah,
and like I said last night, the biggest thing for me is that whatever your opinion is, right, is that sports washing is a real thing. Okay, we all can agree that sports washing is a real thing. If we, like I said last night, if we get bought by the Qataris, then that is curtains, because we are one of the biggest clubs in the world, and we have one of the biggest infrastructure in the world, and that's with poor ownership who don't invest. If they turn around now and pump loads of dirty money into us as well, football's dead, absolutely done, because you cannot compete with that. If you're an Arsenal, if you're a Liverpool, or if you're an Aston Villa, Brighton, the latter two really working hard this season to have the great seasons that they have. And before you know it, it's a case of if you don't have Saudi money, Qatari money, Abu Dhabi money, if you don't have that sort of capital, say goodbye to earning your way into the Champions League, say goodbye to earning your way into the Europa League, because more and more clubs will become victims of the ever-growing sports washing franchise. And look, and I know people are going to disagree with me there. I'm not saying that my opinion is correct. I'm not saying that I am spot on 100%. I'm just saying it's my opinion. I'm not saying Jim Ratcliffe's perfect either, but I said last night, all I've ever wanted is clean and proper ownership that clears the debt and engages with us as a fan base. I want renovations to Old Trafford. We've seen the stadium falling apart. Again, we're one of the biggest clubs in the world, and our stadium, it genuinely looks straight out of the 80s. It's crumbling. There was the leak in the East Stand, whatever it was, for years that didn't get done. And you go around, they put a lick of paint on the stadium and went, "There's your stadium investments." You do walk past and go, "It does look a bit more red, doesn't it?" But it's not enough. So I'm really sorry. I went on a bit more of a rant and I did let Julio in. But just to preface it, I'm not saying that I am correct and that anyone else that disagrees with me is either a fake fan or they're wrong. You have to contextualize everything these days, because somebody will find a way to out of context.
That's the funny part. You can make a fair point without needing to contextualize it, and then you get immediately jumped on. You're like, well, you shouldn't have to make context unless it regards it, and that's the bollocks. Because this is what I find funny, right? And this is what I've heard a few times over the past couple of days, either through different podcasts or articles that I've read. It's certain fans, whether it be ours or Liverpool or even like Real Madrid, for example. If they got bought over, which they don't need to anyway. But there were fans that were asked the question, how would you react if you got the oil money? And they were like, makes no difference, because pre-oil we had history anyway. And I was like, well, this is what is also interesting. Even though we like to mock them for it, for what they've won in the 2010s, Manchester City also had history pre-oil money. They did win a UEFA Cup in 1971. They did win the league the year before we won our first European Cup. So yes, we can mock them, and we have. Let's be real, like I have, and I enjoy it at times. Some of the time I just be like, well, to hell with these, I don't care. But they did have a history. But it's funny when you see other fans are going to be like, but it makes no difference. I'm like, it does, because you can't all of a sudden become a hypocrite. Like you can't. You have to like if whatever you've said those comments by, you've got to die with it by your own club as well. So even if we do get bought over, I can't turn around and go, but we had history pre-oil money or whatever. Like it's still there, but there's still going to be more after it because there's going to be much more significance added to the club.
Yeah, makes it very difficult. Go on, Jamie. Yeah.
I'm just going to respond to Sean's comment here. Obviously, I'm glad he really appreciates the point. The thing is with clean money, it's absolutely possible. You don't earn the revenue that we do every year, and not be in a position where you can use that to reinvest in the infrastructure. If we had footballing people making the decisions, we'd save shitloads of money on transfers, on wages. If we didn't have parasites taking dividends out every quarter, we'd save money there. And realistically, a big investment in the stadium saves money in the long term, in terms of it makes it more carbon neutral, it makes it more energy efficient. You can make loads of changes, and you won't have to constantly
fit
keep
more people in. You get more money
exactly. You wouldn't have to put out fires as they pop up. So the money we generate is not a problem. We were coming in second, third on the football rich list year after year after year, and obviously we've only just started to slip out of that top 3 now, but we're still up and around the top 5, top 6 every year without fail, because we're a massive club. All it needs is for somebody to go, the money that they generate on their own is enough to not warrant stupid investments of, we're going to put a cash investment of £500 million under the desk and stuff like that. We're going to find some backdoor loops so we can stick $1 billion in. We don't need that, because we generate one of the highest revenues of any English club, any club in the world. So it's about people being smart with their decisions. It's about people caring about the club and caring about the fan experience, whether that is, the match going fan, whether that's the fan that wakes up at 4 a.m. to watch the club. Wherever you're from, if you support Manchester United, you deserve to be valued by the football club and not treated. How many times, even things like how many times have we seen us
for 18 years?
Yeah,
and we need that back.
Mm-hmm. Even just little things like in the direction of the club. Like how many times have we seen us get beat by, we'll have a shock loss to West Ham or whatever, and 24 hours later we're promoting a sale on the shirts and stuff like that, and you get bled dry by this club because all they care about is extracting as much money, whether you're a mile away from the stadium or whether you're 1,000 miles away from the stadium. They turn around and go, all we care about is you giving us all your cash. All right? We've seen a shift in that.
Look after the game where we got we got pumped off Liverpool. What happened the next day? Here's the new Man United tracksuit. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I want an immediate response on the pitch. That's what I want.
Exactly.
I want an immediate response on the pitch. No more of these stupid apologetic tweets. None of the stupid, look, here you go, new tracksuit. No.
Poor Julio. Poor Julio has been sat in this corner.
Yeah, I'll shut up now.
No, you're all right, Jamie. Thank you very much, mate.
I won't.
Julia, thanks for joining, mate. And sorry you've been sat there so patiently in the corner. I really appreciate you being here, buddy. Anything to add to that? Obviously, we've spoken today already a couple of times about obviously Reuters. Obviously came out and said what they said. Contrary to that, Simon Stoney said actually they haven't got exclusivity at the moment. Basically, it's now up to Sir Jim Ratcliffe to then put in another bid. And then obviously if he isn't able to match that, or if it's not what they're looking for, then it will go into exclusivity. But anything else on those things from you, Julia?
Firstly, good evening. It feels weird saying that
24 minutes in. You can blame Reese for that. He hasn't shut up for days, has he?
I haven't been on a football podcast in a while, so I deserve this.
Yeah.
Go on, mate.
That's true. Reese, were we on together the last time you were on one of your shows?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, you've all stolen my thunder a little bit, but it just means that we all think the same, really, in regards. I mean, look, the 3 key topics today are, firstly, Rio's video, which I did entertain a little bit on Twitter, the jokes of the fact that it's Ronaldo 2.0 with the way he came out with the shades, with the smug grin then. But I did find it I said in the group chat, I found it a very weird coincidence that he says that. And then obviously the news comes out later, and I was a bit like...
There's no smoke without fire. There's so many things that have happened today. There can't be any smoke without fire, can there?
Yeah, it's really weird. Something has been heard somewhere, and it's found its way into Rio Ferdinand's mobile phone. So it's a little bit weird. Listen, since the news from way back when that the Glazers were looking to sell. I remember in one of the group chats, the question was posed, because at the time it was, who do you want, Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Sheikh Jassim? And obviously you had one person here saying Sheikh Jassim, you had another person saying Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And the only thing I said then, even though Jim Ratcliffe's PR was pretty good back then, just because it was like, oh, he's a United fan, and apart from an 11th hour registered interest with
Yeah, on this comment as well, he's an absolute prick, and to be honest, it's one less person that he can take the piss out of. So you're probably going down the right route there. Go on.
Now, the funny part about that is it wasn't even the worst thing I said. All I did was just laugh at his ridiculous tweet and got blocked off of the back of that. So I've said worse to him, believe me. But listen, yeah, it's just I always said at the time, there's no, and I've even maintained till now that there's no such thing as a perfect owner. And we've seen that in the time that's gone by, people, all those that were Jim Ratcliffe almost in preference, they're a bit like, oh, actually, he wants to load the club with debt, or he wants to keep the Glazers on, or whatever. So it was almost a case of time will tell who's the best. I mean, I find it ridiculous, all these people trying to claim they know what's going on, when with the amount of NDAs that must have been signed, for all we know, there could be like for all you guys know, I could have been running some strings somewhere and had my own consortium building in the background that none of you knew anything about. That's like the power of NDAs almost. So there could be someone else in the fold we've never heard of.
I generally find, just to add to your point, I generally find we only know about maybe like 4 or 5% of the whole thing as a collective. Yeah, I think we only know 4 or 5%. We definitely don't know the whole lot, and we never will.
Yeah, that's what I mean. People obviously saying, "Oh, it's Qatar, it's happening." Like it's not over here. Do you know what I mean? There's still
it's not even close. Ultimately, it's not gone to exclusivity. There's still probably 3 or 4 weeks, as we said at the beginning of the show, when they do the fit and proper. Unfortunately, it's dragged out for as long as it has. You know, Chelsea, when they put it on the market, I mean, it was all done 3 or 4 months after, and they have taken the piss. But ultimately, as Jamie said, they're trying to get, squeeze as much out as they can. I've just seen a tweet here by Rob Blanchett. How could there be exclusivity when the Glazers' sole purpose is to test the market and push the share value? There's still a chance they don't sell Manchester United at all. Qatar's offer will have to break the bank. If Ineos withdraw, then we know what's coming next.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I've seen a tweet from our good gentleman Jonathan, who says if there's going to be a reputable source, it's not going to be a football one. And we're more or less going to hear about all these different things from more finance-based sources as opposed to football sources. So I've always been of the mentality that I want the best person to look after the club. Now, obviously, like I said, there's no such thing as a perfect owner. Everyone comes with their flaws. I've never really been Qatarian. I've never been Sir Jim Ratcliffe in. There was a point last summer I was, but that's only because the PR seemed great at the time. Without doing research, we didn't know anything about him. And, it's one of those things where, yes, you can look at...
That's definitely not him, by the way. That's definitely Sean, and I'll be having a word with him after. Yeah,
100% Sean.
It's definitely Sean, and the reason I know it's Sean,
Johnny, you can fuck off.
It's 100% Sean, and the reason I know it's Sean is because he appeared in my live chat a couple of weeks ago, so I know it's Sean.
Go on, carry on, Julia. Go on, buddy.
Listen, like at the end of the day, like you can, for example, there are these issues around Qatar and, all these moral compasses and all sorts. I won't really touch on them because you gentlemen and everyone else we probably know has touched on them. But I look at, for example, how the Qataris run PSG, where even though with the rainbow laces, for example, Qatar still let PSG run with those campaigns that they do in France, if those are the right words to use to describe it. So PSG are still on the front for all of those different things. And it was only Idrissa Gana Gueye, I think it was, who refused to wear a shirt with his name and number in the rainbow colors in the back, on his back of his shirt. So I think that even though they've got all those issues there in terms of in their own differences in their own ways, I personally think that maybe because it'll be run in Manchester, I think that there may be a little bit more support for more people, for more things, for all sorts of things, because it's Manchester United is the biggest club in the world. You know, I mean, it's supposed to be one of the most welcoming clubs out there. And to touch on, listen, Jamie and Brian touched on it beautifully last night. It was almost like poetry what they were saying with regarding the fans. And I'm seeing a lot of these different tweets come out from fans this week saying, to be honest, if you're one of these, you shouldn't have the right to have an opinion.
So tribal. It's so tribal.
But I think it's ridiculous because there are matchgoers, for example, who, put it this way, if I went to the States, a lot of my friends would do that. They would go to an NBA match, not because they support NBA, whether it's the Lakers or anything. It's just for the experience. There are tourist fans that come to England and they do that as well. So I think that's flawed to say that those who probably don't know anything about what's going on regarding the Glazers, the takeover, they knew of Cristiano Ronaldo last year, but they didn't know much about him. You can't sit there and say, just because they've experienced it and you haven't, means that they have every right to comment on stuff that maybe they don't even know. So I think there are flaws there with that one. I don't go to matches as much as I would love to because I live down south and I'm a student on a student loan and part-time work. I don't have the time or the financial flexibility to go and watch the team that I support, that I've loved for 20 or so years of my life, as much as I'd love to. So I think it's a bit flawed, and I think that my personal opinion is everyone's allowed an opinion, but it's very telling what kind of fan and supporter, or whatever the difference is between the two words. It's very clear to see what kind of person you are in that regard on what you're posting on Twitter. Almost, you get those people posting different things on Twitter, and it's a case of, it's just ridiculous. It's just unnecessary. And for what is supposed to be as the football club in England.
Evan or Sean in the comments here again, the unprofessional bastards. No, I don't think United will make an 11th hour bid for Caicedo. Sorry, Julio.
That's fair enough. We can all appreciate humour a little bit. Listen, the fact of the matter is people on Twitter are idiots, quite frankly. No matter where you're from, you should have the right to support whoever you want. And it's just unnecessary. This club, this fan base has been very divided for a number of years now. And funnily enough, it's some non-match goers who have big platforms who give other non-match goers almost a bad name. So almost a case of, oh, you must be like one of them, or you must be like this person almost. So it's just ridiculous on all parts, and you should just be allowed to support the football club you love. Do you know what I mean? It's very difficult to put what we have for United. It's very difficult to put into words almost.
It is.
So
it is difficult, and I think that people, it's that old term, keyboard warriors, essentially, isn't it? People are quite happy to sit behind their PCs or phones tweeting what they want, and I think everybody is just gunning for an argument, and it's really, really sad to see. And unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever really break away from that. But it's about obviously making sure you follow, block, or whatever the right people. Yeah. Just a couple of little updates here. Alex Crook from TalkSport has said that Sheikh Jassim is growing in confidence the Glazer family will accept his offer. Neither Sheikh nor Sir Jim Ratcliffe's Ineos have been granted an exclusivity agreement, but the former believes Joel and Avram are now warming to the idea of a full sell.
So it's a whole lot of nothing. Like, that's just word soup. Do you know what I mean? That is, it's like, I'd be interested in going on a date with Dua Lipa, and maybe she'd be interested as well, but I've not been, I've not been told yes or no yet.
I've not spoken to her yet. Yeah.
But do you know what I mean?
That's like example.
It's like saying that my
example.
wife is Scarlett. It's like saying my wife is Scarlett Johansson, but I've not got the evidence to support it. I can just say it. You have to take my words as gospel. She is, but hey ho.
Unfortunately, this comes with the territory of being a club the size that we are. Do you know what I mean? Is that every man and his dog wants to either be the person that breaks an exclusive, wants to give an indication that they have some form of platform in there. Like genuinely, I'm not going to name names here because they might be watching. I don't know. But I've seen certain people that we all know on Twitter claiming that they know information about it, and I'm like, no, you don't, bro. Like, I promise you, like, you know,
Sean, congratulations. Sorry, mate. I just had to say, Sean, congratulations. You made me laugh. Thank you.
But she's warming to the idea. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's
yes.
that's the thing.
We're
wait
waiting
till she
for the
sees a
here we go.
mustache.
Nah,
We're waiting for
colour
the
me
here we go.
shocked.
5-year contract.
A long-winded way of saying someone's interested, but we don't know what's happening. Colour me surprised with all those words. Honestly, it's beyond ridiculous. Do you know what I mean?
Here's an exclusive. We can give this now. The takeover ain't going to be done until after the summer, in my opinion. Way after the summer.
It was a bad time to freeze. Then. It was just the takeover.
I didn't get him freeze. Well, I still think
I genuinely think it's going to take that long. Like, and that's why I'm distancing myself.
There have been reports today to suggest that we might hear something by the end of the week.
Shut up, Evan. Yeah,
but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, I don't know what else there is to go through, really. We've covered all the main points, to be honest with you guys. And obviously nothing is concrete. I think that essentially something's been lapped up, and obviously it's still very much up in the air. And of course,
I have one thing actually. I've got one thing. It's actually for you, mate, because you've not been asked a question all stream. After the takeover. Don't worry, I don't deal with dirty money and dirty laundry. It's all clean in my sense. The question I've got for you, mate, is after the takeover goes through, what do you think generally happens? Forget transfers, because that seems to be an obvious. What do you generally think will happen after the takeover goes through?
I think that's a very, very difficult question to answer, but I think essentially there will be a lot of happiness, I think, from across United fans, due to the fact that obviously we've been waiting for such a long time for these parasites to essentially leave. But again, I think that you could get as Jamie's already said, you could get anybody in and you could look at their sort of credentials, the background. They might tick every box. They might be whiter than white. They're completely clean. But if they don't run the club well, then it means absolutely nothing. It's so difficult to tell, but I'm really hoping that whoever takes over comes in, they make a statement, they probably give a bit of a written interview of some sort, addressing the fans, telling them what they want to do, giving us complete transparency on what they plan to do.
I'm the same, transparency. Yeah. As long as they're actually they speak what we want. As long as they say what we want to hear. As long as they're genuinely committed, as long as they actually abide by what the culture of the club is. Yes, there's still a long way to go. We had a fairly okay to good season last year. Third in the trophy is better than what many of us expected. I said 5th and 2 trophies, so I'm half right. When you look at going forward, we still want it to be within what United's all about, but I think what you have to look at, unfortunately, is the City approach is actually a very clever way. Not about going and spending like X amount of money every single transfer window, but what they actually spend on is they actually look at improving certain aspects of the team. They don't just go out and waste the money, but then they also go and spend it on the training facilities. They've got one of the best, like, I hate saying it, but it's true. They've got one of the best training facilities in the entire of world football. Like, that amount of money is what I expect the new owners, doesn't matter who they are, I expect that level of money spent on our own, because it'll get the men's, women's, the academy teams for the men, the academy team for the women, all in the same area, all on the same ground, so they're not separated and isolated away from each other. And I expect heavy investment on Old Trafford. Like, I expect that, even if it means digging under and you reduce it, like, you actually decrease the stadium a little bit, not decrease the capacity, but you dig it down. It's actually a smart option, because you don't have to worry about the stupid train lines. You dig under, you're going to feel a lot lower at the ground anyway, so it'd be not a problem. But the other thing as well I was going to say, and this is the last thing, is I just don't want to see, I mean, that's true. Jamie gets, I'm not looking forward to that Norway game now, thanks for ruining it. My biggest concern though is the minute a takeover does come through, it's immediately going to be transfer. It immediately becomes transfer. I get the transfer window is important, and I'm not going to deny that. But when you look at it directly, there's other things that are equally as important, like the training ground, like the facilities, like the stadium. They all need spent on. But also, who's actually running the club above the manager? the manager needs better scope of people around him as well. The scouting system can be improved on easily with the investment of money. Director of football, whether it be a Van der Sar, who's obviously been booted out of Ajax, like anybody on that respect, it's about actually improving the club as a whole. And if they abide by the culture, then I'm okay with that. But I just don't want it to become another tribal issue, because that's what's becoming on social media. It's tribal over who you support in terms of the prospective owner.
I think that we are going to struggle to ever get away from that. And as I said, I think it's important just to block out and iron out the things that you don't want to see or don't listen to. Julia, I know you want to come in. I should have done this at the beginning of the show. And at the beginning of the show, Gordon McQueen passed away today. And obviously it's been massively overshadowed for all this rubbish that has come out. Is it, won't it? But obviously everyone here at the Weekly Armchair send our huge regards and obviously rest in peace for sure. Julio, come in on what you want to say, brother.
Firstly, lovely sentiment to Gordon McQueen. I did want to actually bring his name up as well. One of the things I wanted to say is based on Reese's point was it's not like we need heavy investment.
I'm sorry,
carry on, Julia. Carry on.
No, I've seen it.
Oh dear.
Guys, let's keep it professional. Come on, carry on.
Wait, the tone was set early when someone changed my subheading. Right? The tone was set early. I don't know who did it because it wasn't me. But listen, one of the points I wanted to make was it's not like we need heavy investment. You know, obviously we want the debts to be cleared and to be run properly, but we make a lot of money as it is. Just the problem is everyone likes reminding us of the £1 billion or so we've spent in the last 10 years in the Woodward era. However, when you look at how much was spent, it's all dross, and most of it is not there anymore. Do you know what I mean? A lot of money was spent, and it's not there anymore. Do you know what I mean? That £1 billion isn't on that football pitch. It's not on the training ground. It's nowhere to be seen almost. You know, the Lukaku's, the Di Marias, and a lot of these players were gone with loss of money. So I think that we need people. We need the right people. We need the best in class. We need the best people to run the football club from top to bottom. And the other point I wanted to make was, if it's still in my head now, which is annoying.
TikTok. We ain't got all day.
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone out of my head completely.
Nah, it's gone. It's all right. Well, if you remember at any point, you jump in there. Listen, guys, there's nothing else more to say, but as obviously more news unfolds, more things come out, you probably will hear from us again, trying to kind of sort of dissect a little bit, understand it a little bit, and get everyone's thoughts on it. Really appreciate everybody obviously being in today. You guys especially, thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the hot weather. I know we moan about it, but let's go outside, let's enjoy it, and let's take advantage of it. Anyway, listen, as I said, we'll be back in the next couple of days, but enjoy your evenings, everyone, and we will see you next time. Right, I've got to run, boys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time. Right, sorry, Julio, that it took so fucking long, bro. But I really appreciate all the comments you had. All right.
No worries.
Yeah.
Love
all
you,
the
boys.
best, lads. See you later.